Once again, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about more director bits. We're going to be diving into the execution of commands throughout your environment. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk about a couple of different verbs you can use. While the ones that we're going to talk about are they're core, there are other ones you can use. I'll have links in the description for some of the syntax information that you can use. But what we're going to do is just talk about some basic ones, adding, sending files over the wire, run, so we can actually run specific commands, and then blueprinting things so that you can send a file over the wire and then render the resultant of that file on the disk. So there's a lot of really cool options you can do within Director, lots of advanced features, lots of basic features. But the point is that the DSL within Director is so simple that you should be able to come into a Director environment and begin operating that cluster day one without reading really any documentation, right? You see the client, you can run the client, you can see the exec, you can run the exec. We'll see how to talk about the help, everything else that it kind of just bundles up for you for free. So let's kind of dive right into that. There's a lot going on, but just as all the other tutorials are there, it's going to be simple. Now that we have Director client and server running, let's go ahead and do something useful with it. Here, we're going to go ahead and SSH back into our little server environment. We have a server running, we have a client running, and let's go ahead and prove that real quick. Director server, Director client. This is all running on the same node, one node. But we're going to go ahead and run some execution commands just to make sure that everything is working. So let's go ahead and do that real quick as we dive into the Director usefulness. So let's go ahead and escalate our privileges. We're going to go ahead and use our opt director bin director command, which is our installed version of Director inside of a virtual environment. Take a look at our help information. We've got a lot of stuff we can do. What we're going to hone in on is exec. Right there. So exec, let's take a look at what we can do with exec. Exec allows us to run all kinds of stuff. We can run various verbs. We can run against specific targets, and we can pull for the completion of a given command. So let's run something very basic. We're going to go into our virtual environment. Again, opt director bin director. We're going to say exec. We're going to tell it which verb we want to do. Not ruin, run. Echo hello world. And it ran. But how do we know what has been run and what the status of that thing is? Well, we just go ahead. Obviously, we just go ahead and take a look at our manage command. What does manage do? Well, we can list jobs, we can list nodes, we can purge nodes, purge jobs, purge nodes, job info, export, blah. So let's take a look at what the list jobs provides us. There's our ID. This ID and this ID are the same ID. And we can see that it was successful. There was no expired commands, it didn't fail, and the execution time was basically 0 seconds. But what did it really do? That's not a ton of information. That's just kind of information at a glance. So let's take a look at the job info. And here we can actually see what was run, what the information was that was returned, in this case, hello world, where it was run, the verb that was used, the fingerprint of the task itself, right? This is useful for item potency. The command, the raw command that was executed, the verb that was used, timeout, again, task SHA. This is more of the job definition information. Was it successful? And the time it took to run, which in this case was 0.0038 seconds with a round trip time of 0.02 seconds. So for Director to receive the command on the same host, it took 0.2 seconds to execute. It's pretty quick. It's pretty quick. Now, what's interesting here is that's the time it took for the message to run from the client through the server to the actual node and then execute. This round trip time will be important later when we bootstrap our cluster and actually show it working across multiple nodes, and we'll run this exact same command. Now, what if we run it again, right? There's a fingerprint here. Task SHA-1. This would be the same if we ran that again. Let's prove that. Here we are. We have a brand new job ID. Let's go ahead and list our jobs. Right, we can see 2. And then let's go ahead and take a look at our info for that brand new job. And here we can see job skipped. And why was that? Well, it was skipped because there's nothing to do. This command has already been run and it returns successful. And this is the fingerprint of that. I know. I'm right there with you. So basically, Director is taking a look at what was been running and why. And there's a local cache within the environment it's a static cache, right? It opens and closes it based on what it's doing from the client point of view, not from the server point of view. So the server can execute a command, and if the return is 0 or success, it then sets that cache and says, hey, this fingerprint has already been run. But what if I just wanted to run it again? Because I told you to. You can skip the cache. And now if we look at our job list, we can see we have 3 jobs. We can take a look at the job info. And we can see that it ran. The fingerprint of the job definition is still the same. But it ran because I told it to. So, the cache was ignored. You can see that in the job definition. Ignore my cache. And then it ran. Very cool. Very, very cool. Very powerful stuff. Again, we can take a look at the round trip time. Stupid fast. So, if we take a look at the jobs, we now have 3 jobs that we've run across the environment. What if I was tired of looking at these things? Well, I can actually purge that list. And now they're gone. I don't need to look at them anymore. So that's useful because, you can tell Director, I want to run something, and I want to run it, and I want to run it, and then I want information about it, and then I gotta discard all that information and run something else. That way Director it's a stateless application, right? If I restart Director, all of that information is purged anyways. The statefulness of Director is really only a record, a ledger of what was been run during this, last couple of executions. This is awesome because this allows us to stand up Director, run a whole bunch of stuff, and then tear it all down and not have to worry about it. And then you can rebootstrap the environment to run some more stuff. Or you can just let it sit there running idle. It just sits there running and waits. Because Director is so lightweight and uses so few resources, it really has no impact on the system by sitting there idle. But if you wanted to close it all down and then stand it all back up on every execution, you 100% could. And that's how it has been designed. While there's so much more you can do with this, we're only going to cover a little bit more about verbs and execution. And that is, I'm going to show you how you can actually get all of the different command line switches that are available to you when you're running a particular execution job. While you can always refer back to the documentation, which is online and beautifully written if I do say so myself, the command line interface provides a helpful set of information about everything that could be run and all the characteristics of those runs. So if we take a look at our verb, echo, skip cache, echo hello world, if we wanted to take a look at what was totally available to us, we can actually add the flag -- exec help. And this would tell us, well, you can run what I just ran, exec help, or I can add skip cache, run once, add a specific timeout, or set an argument that can be used later. Now let's cover that real quick because this is a very powerful feature. Let's say I wanted to run echo hello world. And let's also say I wanted to store that as an argument that I could use later in another command. Okay? Are you following? I want to run that command, store the output, and cache it so I can use it later. So here we go. Use later, please. That's our argument. Let's go ahead and run that. We have a task. Let's list our task. There it is. Let's take a look at our info. There it is. It ran hello world. We stored the argument, use later, please. So now let's do something with that. Use later, please. This will tell director to go ahead and run that command. Echo brace use later, please. And that brace expansion will take the argument use later, please from a stored argument from a previous command. There it is. Let's take a look at our info. There's the info, hello world. So this command, the raw definition of the command was echo, brace, use later please. And the return was hello world, because that's what I stored in the argument. Let's do it again. This time, we'll use the host name and then use that inside of our command, right? Before we were just echoing hello world. Let's take some standard out of a regular old command. So here we are. There's our standard out arg saying echo hello world. Let's take host name -f. There it is. Let's list our jobs. There we are. We can see that. We can see that it ran. Job info on our new ID. Okay, we can see the command was hostname -f, and we can see that the info was the host name. Fully qualified domain name. So now let's go ahead and use that in our command. Again, once again, we're just going to echo it out, but let's do something a little more complex. -f. We're going to awk -f off of the dot and then print the second item out of that. Right? Pretty simple. We can list. We can info. And again, we can see what was run and what the output was. You can also see that I have a syntax error in my bash because I did not escape what I was doing. So now I'll do that. And now we can actually see what I wanted to look at. There it is. There's the info. So anyways, the long and the short here is that with director, you can do a lot of very cool things. And with the ability to go ahead and see what I can run from the environment, I can do this with all of the different verbs that are available. Let's go ahead and look at add, work, dir, cache, file, and more. All of them have the ability to explore what is available, what it does, why it does it, etc. Within our command structure, we've only been talking about happy path. Things that execute successfully. Happy path. What happens when something fails? Fails? Well, nothing would ever fail. That's just impossible, right? Well, wrong. Things break. So let's go ahead and see what a failure looks like across our environment. We'll go ahead and still run our exec command where we run our happy dappy hello world. But then we'll add a forced failure. List the jobs. Oh no, success? Not true. And where did it fail? It failed on that node and this UUID. So with that, again, we can take a look at the job info and we can see right here, Echo hello world and false failed. Ugh, what a bummer. Now, but the long and the short here is that we're able to ID what happened, where, and why. Now, one of the really cool things here that is within the director command line interface is that it accepts your command and then it goes off and does work and releases your command. It just basically says, all right, you can go do something else more important. I'll take care of this. But what if you wanted to wait for it? That's right. Director can actually do that too. Just add the poll flag and it'll sit there and block, waiting for your job, and tell you right there on the command line whether or not something was success or failure. How easy is that? How easy is it? Yes, it actually makes life very simple. With poll, we can actually go ahead and look at a given task for a given set of hosts and say, did this all succeed? And then move on to the next one. Did this all fail? I'll go ahead and fix something. It makes life simple, which is awesome, especially when you're dealing with hundreds, if not thousands, of nodes. Yes, thousands. Now, I personally have not tested Director at 1,000 node scale yet. I don't know how well it will do. However, I have tested it at 500 node scale, and I know it performed fantastically. In fact, I did it live on stream on Twitch. Check it out, twitch.tv, Peznats. But within my stream, I tested Director at several hundred node scale and doing 2,800 tasks. And this was before I had a lot of the polling optimizations that I have today. And I was able to complete all 2,000 tasks in about 8 minutes. That's huge. If you go and take a look at my comparative analysis of different deployment and operation platforms that are available today, you'll notice that I'm able to do things at ridiculous speeds across many hundreds of nodes without skipping a beat. Where, some things where we're implementing the same trivial tasks for testing takes an order of minutes, hours, half an hour. So the speed of Director almost constant across all nodes within the environment. Will that hold true at 1,000 node scale? I don't know. TBD. But it's true today. So we can pull for commands. We can actually also timeout commands. Right? Okay, here's our hello world. We can set the timeout of 1 second. What if it takes more than 1 second? Oh no, it failed. Because the timeout is configurable at the task level. We can set it globally, or we can set it at the task level. The default is 10 minutes. Something's going to take longer than 10 minutes, it's going to fail. But if you wanted to change that, you could totally do that. You can set it to 1200. There's 20 minutes. Timeout 1 is 1 second. Timeout 1200 is 1200 seconds. 1200 seconds, 20 minutes. So the default is sane based on a typical task workflow expectation. Small tasks, small bites, small chunks. We get it done quick. We return, we move on. The timeout allows you to take care of your application expectations, but provides a sane default. 10 minutes is a long time for something to run. If you need it to run longer, make it run longer. If you know it should take less time, you can set that down too, just as I did in this example command. Timeout of 1, told it to sleep 2, it failed. Put it back up to 20 minutes, it succeeded. And again, we can take a look at the list of jobs and know what succeeded, how long it took, and where it failed. So that's that. That's exec. I hope you enjoyed that quick tutorial where we talked about different execution parameters that you can run within the environment. We covered, some of the help information, how to actually get help from a command itself, to talk about all the parameters that it accepts, both advanced and basic. So, I mean, there's a lot of really cool functionality here, and I'm pretty excited to bring it to you, and I think that you're going to really enjoy it. But I would love to know what your thoughts are. So leave a comment in the comment box. Thumbs up if you liked the video. Thumbs down if you didn't. I don't know. Follow me on my various social medias. That's Peznuts, kind of across the board. Twitter, Facebook, Twitch. Links in the description. In the next tutorial, we're actually going to talk about orchestrations and how to chain hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of tasks together, or just one, and how to target those tasks against specific nodes in your environment so you can orchestrate a deployment, not just run everything all over the place. So, without further ado, I will see you in the next one.